and welcome to the Gussets and Godays podcast, episode number 22. My name is Christina and this is my podcast about my knitting, stitching and crafting. I know it's been not too long since I saw you, but I'm trying to make a bit of an effort to get in more regularly. Today I'm wearing the dress I showed you last week, but it was on the mannequin, so I thought I'd show it to you on the body. It's the Swirl Dress by Gertie from her book Gertie Sews Jiffy Dresses. Just swivel the chair out the way there. So really simple wrap over style, V in the back, and yeah, it's quite nice and it's adjustable. I can adjust that waistline to be as tight or as loose as I want, and yeah, I'm super happy with it. And I don't usually like a cap sleeve because I find a cap sleeve, when you've got an armhole and then you've got that little sleeve just pressing on the top of the arm, I find it just makes my, it's not very flattering. But these are really nice and loose, and they, you know, I've got a lot of flexibility, so super comfy and I think also flattering. I've got lots of knitting projects to show you, just little bits that I've been working on. I just wanted to show you one little project that I've been doing. Now this was a vintage dress. I know it's probably quite difficult for you to see because of the print, but this is a crossover style. So it crosses over to create this kind of V neck. And it was just a little bit too small. I didn't have full flexibility in my arms. So I took the facing out from here all the way around, and I used it to piece a little piece of fabric in there. I wonder if I can get any closer. Oh yeah, that's great. You can really see that there. So I did it on both sides and in the sleeve as well, and then I used some plain fabric to lengthen the sleeves by 3/4 of an inch, so I let down everything that was there. And then the, gosh, silly mannequin, sorry, then I just bound, I just bound the neckline. I did have to do that twice because the first time I bound it, it was just a little bit too loose and it was just sitting a little bit away. And so I took out 1/2 inch of the binding each side, and now when that's on the body, it just sits really well. And I will wear that with a little white belt, little white earrings, and then it's lovely for summer. And then I thought that this print makes a really good autumnal colour as well. So I pulled that out of storage, and now I can wear that this autumn. It did take quite a lot more effort than I'd thought that it would. There is a side seam zip on the left side, so I did have to remove the zip, put the panel in and put the zip back in, and then finishing the neckline with the binding was a little bit time consuming, but it was super worth it. I loved that dress when I got it, and I could still wear it, but if I put on a cardigan I felt really uncomfortable, just because when you push your arms in the cardigan it can sometimes push the sleeve up a little bit, and I just felt so restricted and almost as if I was in a straitjacket. So it's still not the easiest garment to get on because of the side zip, but there is no centre back seam. I could add a centre back seam and put the zip in through there, but then that would become tighter. So I'm going to see how this goes. I've been able to try it on, and it goes on much easier. That was almost, I think that was 1.5 inches in the armhole, down to nothing at the waist, and 1.5 inches through the sleeve. It's probably a good amount more than I needed, I would say, but I think it's just worth having that little bit of positive ease for flexibility, and it just feels, you know, really nice and easy to wear now. So yeah, I can just pop a slip on underneath, and maybe some tights in the autumn. Depending on how cold it is in early winter, I think I can still get away with that little cardigan and kind of layer up a few pieces. So that's the kind of style of garment that I want more of. I want more pieces that I can wear for different occasions, different seasons, and just update my accessories and different coloured cardigans. Because I think I could easily wear the honey bop that I made, that I showed last week. I think that would go really beautifully with the red tones. Oh gosh, it's raining really hard. I love it when it rains and I'm sitting in the attic because it's just really atmospheric. Yeah, so I'm really proud of that. I think it came together really well. If I were going to do it again, I would potentially have actually taken a little bit away from there. So instead of crossing up so high, I could have cut away and gone to a lower V, because it does come up quite high at the moment. But it's a vintage piece, so I do want to be true to the style, and I don't want to just hack up something that I may regret later. So I thought I'll go with this, see how it is, and I can always adjust later on, and that's not a drama at all. So I wouldn't usually show you alterations and things, but I've noticed that there's a bit of an interest for it now, of making things go further, and more of an interest in the kind of to do with the environment and the longevity of the things that we use and we have. So I do try and repair and update and adjust things after I've made them. I don't just make them and then that's it, and if they don't fit me, just toss them. I will go back in and work on things later and try and make them the best that they can be. So I just thought that was a nice example, and it doesn't have to be difficult. Sometimes a small alteration. I mean, that fabric, I just took that from the facing. Often garments have got pockets inside, which is the same fabric, which you could just remove the inside pocket. And with a full skirt, you can remove some of the fullness and regather the skirt. So there's so much flexibility. I know that sometimes people are torn with a vintage garment whether or not they should alter them, and whether that's fair to the garment. But if it's going to be between wearing it and getting rid of it, I think sympathetic alterations can be done really well, and I think they're worth it. And I think making something last longer is always a positive. Now, it doesn't mean that I would take maybe a Dior gown from the 50s and, you know, really go crazy with the alterations, because, you know, that's a designer piece. That's probably where the design is kind of known. But this was just a homemade dress made by somebody, and there's a couple of mistakes in the garment, and I like the idea of that recycling. You may have a different opinion, which is absolutely fine, but that's kind of how I go about things. I do leave, if I were to take something in, I would leave all the fabric, I wouldn't cut it away. And I do try to stay to the same look of a garment. I try not to change it, but I just want it to be wearable. So that's just an interesting topic. So I thought I would show you a couple of my little knitting bits and bobs. So actually I ordered some yarn from Suffolk Socks, which is such a fantastic UK online independent website. I absolutely adore the website. It's so easy to navigate and use, and they've got lots of lovely things. And this was one of the hand-dyed colourways. So this was called the school socks. So you get the yarn for the sock, which is the grey, and then you got also 4 mini skeins, and I just think they are so beautiful and so lovely. They are not my usual style of socks, but I found my tastes have changed a little. So I used to always navigate towards the pastel tones, but then I would always wear the more muted tones. So as much as I love knitting the brights and the pastels and the unusual, the kind of the fun colours, in my sock drawer I'll keep picking out the more muted and natural tones. So I'm trying to make an effort to make things that I know I'm going to reach for, and I don't just want everything to be house socks. I do knit socks usually quite short, so in my boots, it doesn't matter what colour they are, they will not be seen. But sometimes, if I were going to wear a short brogue that was going to finish here and a pair of trousers, you might see a little bit of the leg, so it's quite nice if it does have a neutral feel. And I was getting some Harry Potter vibes from the, I don't know if that was on purpose, but they definitely got the Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin and Gryffindor colours, and I put the Slytherin at the top because I'm Slytherin. I don't think they were intended to be kind of house socks for Hogwarts, but there we go. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. The pattern that I used was the Soul Sister Socks by Jooles of the So Sweet Violet podcast, and also by Amy of the Little Tailoress podcast, but I omitted the lace. So I used the beanie toe and I used the heel as well. And this heel is definitely my favourite. With a heel flap and gusset, I sometimes get a little bit of a hole, which I then have to go back in and stitch up, which makes it thick. And I do get a little area in the corner which is not perfectly smooth if I've done a contrast. I do have some I've been working on, so I'll show you those, I'll show you what I mean. But this gives me a perfectly smooth finish. It looks so professional, so neat, and it gives me the perfect width to fit beautifully. So I'm really, really happy with these. And these socks came wrapped in such a lovely fabric. So I just whipped up a little project bag, and it was tied with this ribbon. So I was so happy when I received that parcel, and straight away I whipped up this little project bag just so I'd have something nice to put them in. I believe that the base is a superwash merino nylon, but I will check, and I'll put all the details down below in the down bar. I'll put all the details of everything I've used on all my projects, so I will list what the base is. These knit up really quickly. They are a smidgen longer than I maybe would have chosen to do. I would ordinarily make my socks probably that length, but because I made it toe up with the pattern, I don't think I really considered how long the portion of the stripes would be, so I would probably have started that a little bit sooner. But I used the photo on the Suffolk Socks Instagram page as my reference, and so they are they're a little bit longer than usual, but they are not too long. I used the Judy's Magic Cast On, Julie's Surprisingly Stretchy, somebody's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, and it's plenty, fits over my calf really well. So they are perfect. They are super worth getting that pattern. The lace is really, really easy. I've got a pair of those on the needles, and that heel is worth, I don't know how I'm going to do any other heels because it just fits me so well. It's a pleasure to knit it. The finish, I mean, I know it doesn't really matter if there's a tiny bit of thickness on the side, you know, from weaving in some ends, but this doesn't have it at all. So this is almost as if they were a machine knit, like a bought pair of socks where they are just perfect. And I've never had that with any socks I've made before, so yay. I pulled out, I mean, in the last week, obviously, I've not made this amount of socks. Well, they were all started. This I knit very quickly. One of these was already finished, and I believe I've showed you before. and I used the pattern that came free with the yarn. So when I bought the yarn, actually also from Suffolk Socks, I believe. Did I buy it from Suffolk Socks? I think I did. I think she did it with the colourway from this year. Is it Cayenne pepper? The red, and then there was key lime pie in the green as well. Yeah, I think I bought it from her. It came with this pattern, so I knit one of the socks with this heel. Now, I don't know if you can see in the picture. Hopefully you can see on the sock. The way that it's been knit, it's almost ribbed. And I didn't really like that. I thought that it may wear badly. So this one is the one that looks ribbed. This is the one that came with the pattern from West Yorkshire Spinners. And then this one, I did the pattern from the Mercury socks, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. I'll list the details below. And this is very dense and very flat. This is very spongy, and the lines of knit stitches stick out. So I think that if they stick out, then they will wear quicker than if they are very flat. That's what I think. It was definitely a good idea trying both. I used the same number of stitches. Now usually a flaw would upset me, but this does not bother me that they are different at all. They are almost exactly the same. It's only the kind of the texture of the stitches which is different, and I don't mind at all. I think it will be really interesting to see if one wears better than the other. Other than that, the pattern was really, really nice. I mean, it was a vanilla sock pattern, so, you know, there was just a toe and a heel. I did find them to be quite pointy, the toes, in that pattern. I think it was every other row for the entire sock you decreased. Did a decrease row? Anyway, I just thought it would be nice to try out the pattern exactly as it suggested, so I'm glad that I did. I definitely did get a little bit of a hole and then I had to close it up, so there's a thickness on there. And the same on the other one. And the messy part I mentioned earlier is this side. Oh, sorry. This side is quite straight, and then the other side I find I get a little bit of a funny angly lumpy bit here. Now I've checked all of the socks I've done with heel flaps and they're all the same. Doesn't matter what style of a heel flap I've done. So that does slightly bother me. I mean, it doesn't bother me when I'm wearing the sock. It's just that kind of learning process of learning something new. You get a really great fit on a heel flap, but I don't find that the finish is quite as nice, and with a contrast it's more noticeable. I made the Mercury socks in a grey, all grey, with no contrast heel, and you wouldn't notice it. So I think if I were going to do heel flaps and gussets in the future, I think I would do it without the contrast, because I feel that it's more noticeable. I mean, in that side where I've picked up, that all looks a little bit messy there. But if it were all in one colour, you wouldn't notice. So this was the Fairy Lights colourway, and I believe that colour was Cayenne Pepper. I'll list it down below. And yeah, they're a really nice sock. I have started on the Hollyberry colourway as well. Again, I just had a few rows to finish off these, and I do prefer the wearability of these ones, the mute against compared to those ones. But doesn't matter. They're both lovely. It's just these are, I like those muted tones. I like the neutrally speckles. I think they're really nice. On this one I did the heel from the heel I mentioned, the Mercury socks. So it's lovely and flat. I was much more careful to be neat on this, so I do find that the picking up is better on this pattern than on the other one. I'm still getting that little corner, so one corner's lovely and that one not so beautiful, but never mind. A vanilla sock is such a handy project to have, just in your handbag, just for when you need one, and I really have enjoyed making all of those. I will put away the Christmas socks for Christmas and pull them out so that I've got some lovely new socks to wear in winter. I'll really appreciate that because I don't do so well with the cold. I've got quite low blood pressure, and so when it's super hot or super cold, I do struggle a little bit. So toasty warm toes is always very lovely. Oh no, I've still got those little leftovers from my school socks. I'll put them in my blanket. Okie dokie. Oh, the last socks that I'm working on, and I am very close to being finished with these. I knit the first one up very quickly, and they're the Soul Sister socks. This one with the lace. Beautiful lace. So easy to do. And the pom-pom. From the So Sweet Violet Advent Calendar from 2017, I believe. I think. So I made these exactly as the pattern suggested, with the beanie toe, all the lace, the correct heel. Such a pleasure to knit, and I think these are 2x2 twisted rib. Is that a twisted rib? I think that's a twisted rib. Looks a bit more fancy when it's a twisted rib. So yeah, that colourway, oh, this was a Homespun House colourway. This was from one of the sock clubs. I got 3 skeins. They were all different bases, so I will write the details below what they are. I knit all my socks on 2.25 higher sharps. I believe this was the Night Bus colourway. Was this the Night Bus colourway? No, it wasn't. Just on the tip. Somebody's visit to something. Tonk's visit? I'm going to write it below. I don't think they're repeatable colourways anyway, but is it Ginny's visit to Mrs. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful colourway, and it's got, I don't think you can really see it so well, but it's got some really great speckly, like highlighter colours in there. Really bright ones. It doesn't come across so well on screen, but they're lovely. And I've probably got less than 10 rows now before I do the ribbing. So fantastic. Really enjoyed knitting these. I put them away because I had been knitting them at work when I was put on a pop-up to do monogramming, and the machine would do all the work, so I just had to sit there in case of emergencies. But I did keep being interrupted by clients and therefore needed to do a little bit of a chit chat and show them everything, so it was not convenient for me to be working on a project where I had to look at what I was doing. That's where I think I started the Christmas socks, so that's a little while ago now. And then they just went into my drawer, my bedside table, and I just forgot they were there. So I was really grateful to find these partially done, and I think the other day when I took them out, I'd just done the toe and a couple of repeats of the lace, and that was it. So that was great for a journey. I did one journey and managed to do the whole of the heel, and then another journey was the whole of the leg. So yeah, that's a nice little project there. Really been enjoying that. I'm looking forward to casting on some socks, the same pattern, but doing the stripes. So I've got some lovely Lay Family yarn, minis, which were, I think they were a spring set a year ago. I believe they were a spring set. Anyway, they're pastel tones, and I thought I could do a bright toe and cuff, and that would be really sweet. So I'm gonna do that, I think, soon. I also thought I would just show you, I ordered this yarn also from Suffolk Socks when I ordered the school socks, and it's just a really nice simple grey with a little bit of heathered feel to it. It's just an opal, 4-ply, solid colour, dark grey. And so I think I can get away with maybe even 2 pairs of this, because one of my boots, the dye from the boots, if it's very wet, can bleed out slightly, so that little bit of the brown dye can go on socks, and I have had that on one of my socks before. So I thought it would be nice just to have some socks like this which don't show any staining or anything. That sounds super gross, but you know, practicality. I've got some walking boots as well, and I wear my hand knit socks all the time. So I thought that was a really great buy. I don't know what pattern to do, if I do one at all, just because I think it's so dark you might not see it. Maybe a ribbed sock. And I've got one left to show you, hopefully I've got enough time. I've been working on this bee embroidery, and it's so pretty. It's really lovely. I've just done the wreath so far. I still need to fill in the middle of the flowers and do the buds. It's by Craft Pod, and it came as a little kit. I saw it being sewn on the vlogs for June by So Raimi. I think it's called So Raimi. Anyway, she did such an amazing job on her embroidery, and I saw her kind of stitching away in the garden and things, and I just had to get the little kit. So I've got all my little threads there. The kit came with the fabric, came with the pattern, everything that I needed to complete this project, as well as some tea and some lovely things. And I believe it's Amelia Ferris is the designer, but Craft Pod is the company that produces the kits, and they've been doing seasonally different designers, so you get a chance to do lots of different projects that you maybe wouldn't necessarily do. The one for spring was a bird, and there were lots of layers of fabric, so it was more of a kind of a multimedia look, whereas this is a very classic, very elegant look. So I think they do change them up, and the look of them is obviously completely different each season just because the designers change. But I'm so happy with how this has turned out. This was a little bit of a kind of impulse purchase, but it was not expensive. It was within my budget. It was just a little treat to myself. And I did 2 days worth of stitching, full days. and I've managed to do that. So I will finish the wreath fully and then go in to do the bee. So that has been a really great project, and this is more my style of embroidery, which I love, which is a little bit freer. I'm not so good with the cross stitch keeping my interest because it's so structured and you have to kind of count much more, whereas this one is just your intuition going in. If something looks a bit sparse, you do a little bit more thread, you go back in, and so this just resonates with me a bit more, and I adore bees and flowers, so this has been such a good little project. So I've also just been popping that in a little project bag and just using that, which I'm really enjoying. So I've got lots of little projects on the go at the moment, and oh, and it came with this bee. Isn't that a lovely enamel pin? The kit came with that. Anyway, isn't she lovely? Well, that's all I have to show you for the moment. Lots of little bits and pieces, which has been really fun for me, just dipping in and out, which I do not usually do. Usually I'm really focused on just one project, so it's been a bit of a different structure, just picking up things as I feel them, and just getting on with what I like. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Christina from the Gussets and Go Days podcast. You can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Gussets and Go Days. And I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and I will see you very soon. So have a lovely week.